Roof preparation. The roof deck must be a minimum 15 and 32 seconds APA plywood, or 7/16 OSB. The plywood must be properly spaced to allow for expansion. In order for DaVinci Shake and Slate to lay flat, it is critical that the roof deck is clean of debris and that the surface is flat. Any decking flaws will affect the final appearance of the roof. Flashing. Once the roof deck is deemed flat and clean, an eaves flashing or drip edge made from copper, coated steel, or aluminum should be installed on the bottom perimeter of the roof. In areas where ice damming is possible, ice and water shield should be installed on the bottom eave of the roof and extend at least 2 feet above the plate line. Ice and water shield should be installed in all valleys regardless of climate. Additionally, if the roof pitch is less than 4 12, ice and water shield is required over the entire roof. Underlayments. Once the ice and water shield is installed, a minimum 30-pound felt underlayment should be installed starting at the eaves and working to the top. To meet the Class A fire rating, DaVinci Roofscapes requires 1 layer of MB Technologies TU35 in lieu of the 30-pound felt. Flashing. Once the underlayment has been installed, flashing should be installed on all gable ends. We recommend a D-style edging or overhanging drip edge. This edging should be made from copper, coated metal, or aluminum. Starter tile. DaVinci starter tiles should be installed once the underlayment and eaves flashing is in place. The starter tile should be installed with the DaVinci logo on top. The starter should overhang the drip edge approximately 1 inch. It is very important that the starter tiles be spaced 3/8 of an inch apart, as tiles will expand when warm. Each starter tile should be nailed with 2 nails on a line approximately 6 inches from the butt and 3/4 of an inch from each edge. Valleys. Valley metal should be W valley with a standing seam diverter down the middle, or a double W with a break in the middle and standing seams diverters on either side. The decision on which valley metal should be used will be based on whether a closed or open valley is preferred. DaVinci Slate and Shakes have an open rib structure, and the standing seam in the different valley types will mask this rib structure. For an open valley, the double W is used where the cut tile are butted to the diverter on each side of the valley. If a closed valley is chosen, the tiles are butted to the diverter in the middle of the valley. Field shake. Now that the starter tiles are in place, it's time to install the field shakes. The shakes may be installed with straight coursing or staggered coursing. We will start first with a straight coursing installation. DaVinci Fancy Shake bundles are made of shakes with 3 different widths, as well as a variety of natural wood tone blends. The shakes of different widths and different colors are evenly distributed throughout the bundle. There are 10 each of the 3 widths in each bundle, and every bundle is the same. Starting at the bottom left for a right-handed roofer, start with a 5-inch or 7-inch shake. The reason that a 12-inch shake may not be used is that the starter tile is also 12 inches. There must be a minimum 1.5 inch offset from the gaps between the starter tiles and the gaps between the shakes. The shake is installed directly on top of the starter tile with the butt of the shake and the butt of the starter tile flush. After the first shake is installed, the next shake installed may be any width as long as the offset between the gaps is 1.5 inches or more. This same rule applies to all subsequent courses of shakes. The gaps between shakes may never be aligned with those of gaps between shakes of adjacent courses. In fact, the offset must be a minimum 1.5 inches, and spacing between tiles should be approximately 3/8 of an inch. The shakes must be installed with 2 corrosion-resistant roofing nails. Stainless steel, copper, or hot-dip galvanized nails are recommended. Nails may be hand-nailed or driven with a coil gun. Staples are not approved fasteners. When attaching the shakes, special care should be used to make sure that the nails are driven flush with the top of the shake. Overdriving the nails or driving the nails on an angle can cause the slates on top to lift. The installation can proceed with either a straight or staggered course installation. For a straight course installation, the shakes may be laid at a 7-inch exposure. For a 7-inch exposure, the installer would have his first course of shakes with their butts laid flush with the bottom edge of the starter. Each subsequent course of shakes is laid exposing the shake 7 inches to the weather. This is achieved by aligning the 7-inch mark on each shake with the tip of the shake below it. An alternate alignment method is using horizontal chalk lines to align the shakes. For this method, the installer snaps a chalk line 7 inches above the tips of the first course of shakes. A chalked line can then be added every 7 inches, all the way to the ridge line if wanted. Once the chalk lines are in place, the installation continues by placing the tips of the shakes on the chalk line and choosing the proper width of shake that will assure there is a minimum 1.5-inch side lap between the joints of the shakes on adjacent courses. The shakes should be laid as they come out of the bundle. Not every shake will fit, so you may have to take a second or third shake from the top to assure proper side lap. A rack-type system, also known as rack style, stair-stepping, or pyramiding, should be used. This will prevent same-size shakes from being laid directly on top of another. If a staggered application is required, the shakes may also be laid at 7-inch exposure. If the 7-inch exposure is used, the horizontal chalk line should be laid 7 inches above the tips of the first course of shakes. All subsequent lines are chalked at 7-inch intervals. For staggered coursing, every other shake has its tip laid on the chalk line, while the alternate shake tips are placed approximately 1 inch below the line. Whether installing straight or staggered coursing, the installation of the shakes will continue until you reach a gable, valley, hip, or abutment. When a gable is reached, it is preferred that the installer doesn't cut any shakes. When the installer gets approximately 16 to 24 inches from the gable end, he should measure the remaining distance to the edge of the roof and pick shakes that will fit the distance with adequate spacing. The spacing may be adjusted between 1/2 inch to 3/16 of an inch to make the shakes fit properly. A 4-inch fancy shake accessory bundle is sold separately to avoid cutting at the gables. When it is necessary to cut shakes at a gable end, cut the inside edge so that the factory edge faces out. Valley. When a valley is reached, shakes should be cut the correct angle to allow for an open or closed valley. These shakes are best cut with a circular saw, although they may be cut with a box knife if necessary. It is preferable to use the widest shakes available for the shake closest to the center of the valley. Larger shakes will allow the installer to keep nails out of the center of the valley, and in addition, it will only require 1 valley shingle per course. The portion of the shake that was cut off for the valley cut can be used as a pre-cut hip cut for the hips. Hip and ridge. Once all field shakes have been installed, a minimum 6-inch wide piece of non-corrosive metal should be placed over the hips and ridges. The metal should extend at least 3 inches from the center point on each side of the hip or ridge. The pre-packaged 5-inch hip and ridge is then installed by placing the individual tiles so that they just touch each other at the apex of the hip. Course can be laid straight by chalking a line down the center of the hip and laying the individual pieces so they just meet on that line. The hip and ridge should be installed so that there is 6 inches of shake exposed. Cut 1 piece of a shake as a starter course and lay it so that the texture faces down. This shake should be cut in such a way that it doesn't project onto the second course of field shakes. The top course of hip and ridge is then put directly on top of the under course, and the hip and ridge proceeds as normal. A similar application is used for the ridge. The prepackaged 5-inch hip and ridge should be installed one piece at a time so that the butts of two shingles are adjacent and the inside edges touch. These should be installed with a 6-inch exposure as well. This video is intended to supplement the DaVinci installation instructions, which should be used as your primary source of information. Nothing in this video supersedes any health or safety instructions provided by your employer.